Focal Point AFR Talk, 888-589-8840. Number to call. Brian Fisher is my name. Focal Point, the program, the network, the American Family Radio Talk Network, AFR Talk. This is going to make the left reach for the duct tape to keep their heads from exploding. Gallup just released a poll this morning that indicates that Americans consider Fox News their main source for news. They have more faith. They look to Fox News more than any other source for their news. Second place was CNN. So let's see. The Fox was considered the number one news source by 8% of all the responders. CNN was second at 7%. Meanwhile, you look at ABC, MSNBC, NBC, PBS, 1%. And CBS was even below that. The New York Times down to 1%. So 8 times as many respondents to this Gallup poll declared that Fox News was their main source of information as compared to the New York Times or compared to NPR. And again, I think that's because the American people are they're tired. They've had it up to here with the kind of swill and the kind of unacknowledged bias that they get from the mainstream media. I do not mind the news being presented in a biased way. That's what I do here every single day. The difference is I'm honest enough to admit it. I will tell you I am biased. I am prejudiced completely in favor of the Judeo-Christian system of values and truth claims. I make no apologies for that. And everything I do, and those news stories, I evaluate, I screen them. The grid that I use is the Word of God. And I compare what I read, what happens to the abiding eternal standards of the Word of God, and that's how I evaluate things. Now, the left is going to try to tell you, look, we're objective, we're fair, we don't play favorites, we don't take sides. Absolutely not true, and the American people, ladies and gentlemen, are onto them. 888-589-8840, number to call. There is a pro-life ad that's been rejected by the Chicago Tribune, USA Today, and the LA Times. They said it was just too objectionable. They wouldn't even run it. You know what it is? It's an ad for pro-life legislation that would protect babies from the age of 20 weeks and up, and it shows a baby at 20 to 24 weeks old, and it's being held in the palm of a man. And it's just a tiny thing. The little baby barely fills the palm of this man's hand. But this is a baby that we're trying to protect with legislation that protects babies from the point they can feel pain. Here's what the ad says. This child has no voice, which is why it depends on yours. Speak up. So all it is encouraging people to speak up to protect the life of the baby that's depicted in this picture. And three newspapers, Chicago Tribune, USA Today, LA Times, said too controversial, not going to run it. Well, let's go to the phones. Let's begin with CJ in Texas. CJ, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Hey, Brian. Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
You bet.
Hey, I've been listening to the show for a while, and it's a great way just for me to kind of stay informed. And like you said, the fact that it's biased, I don't mind that either, being a Christian myself. But, hey, I wanted to just make a quick comment on Rick Perry and his announcement of not running again for governor, and then just kind of our hopes of him possibly announcing a presidential run. And I've had the blessed opportunity to meet him in person twice while he was in the position of governor. And he gives a very confident, professional demeanor. And just like the lieutenant governor, I believe he represents both himself and Governor Perry well, just in the fact that they stand for biblical rights and perspectives. And I love the fact that he is standing up so unapologetically for just these anti-abortion pressures and stuff, and then also just in regards to the immigration, that one is I feel is a touchy issue, and I grew up in South Texas where being Caucasian was, my class was, I graduated from high school, it was like 120 people, and then from that there were only like 5 of us that were Caucasian, and the rest of my classmates were Hispanic. And now I'm obviously not against Hispanic. I've got a lot of friends but I knew a lot of their relatives and that were illegal or trying to gain their status. And I think I heard it best. It's like I'm not against people trying to come here and earn their way into citizenship, as long, and if they are honestly trying to seek, an honest dollar and to seek to be a citizen in the sense that they pay their taxes. I'm for that. But for those you're coming over here and in a sense weakening our economy because of just the fact that they're willing to take less than a minimum wage kind of thing. And so, I'm not going to act like I'm very knowledgeable in all this, but I understand the general idea of the direction we're heading as a country right now, and the fact that it's not good. And being a military officer, just kind of in that direction, understanding that there's a lot for this country that I want to be able to stand up for. And I think supporting those political leaders and encouraging others to do so and being educated in the process is a great way to start. And so just, again, thank you for your show. And I pray and wish Rick Perry the luck, assuming that he pursues that direction.
All right, CJ, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And what CJ said is exactly right. We are not opposed to legal immigration. I mean, people try to paint us as if we're opposed to immigration, period. We are not. We are for legal immigration. We are pro-immigrant. We are pro-legal immigrant. We are anti-illegal immigration. We are against the breaking of the law. So we are for legal immigration. We are against illegal immigration. And I've said it before, America's got the most generous, open-hearted, open-handed immigration policy in the world. We legally allow 1.1 million people every single solitary year to come into the United States and do so legally. Let's go to Fred in Virginia. Fred, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Well, I have to second what you just said about the legal immigration.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we got here.
Yeah.
Legally. But I wanted to point out a fallacy in the thinking about giving amnesty for cheap labor.
Mm-hmm.
Give these people amnesty. They're not cheap labor anymore. They become the Americans that won't do that work.
So you're saying we'll need to bring some illegals in to do the jobs that they won't take? Right. Yeah. Well, that's a good observation. And I frankly think, and we've had Hispanics call this program that said, look, in fact, I've got a soundbite from a good friend of mine, Raul Labrador, who is a Hispanic lawmaker from the state of Idaho. He's from Puerto Rico. He was an immigration attorney before he ran for office, and he is completely opposed to amnesty. And part of it, Fred, we've had Hispanics call this program. It's, look, I or my family, we immigrated here legally. We played by the rules. We waited in turn. We filled our turn. We did all the paperwork. We paid the fees and all that, and we waited our turn to come through the turnstiles. And then for them, I mean, they resent the fact that people that were not willing to play by the rules and abide by the law are being leapfrogged ahead of other people in line. All right, Fred, listen, appreciate the call. Thank you. Let's go to John in Florida. John, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Hello?
Yeah, John, you're on. Go right ahead.
Hey, Brian.
Hey.
I've been watching all the events that happened over 4th of July weekend, and we're trying to figure out how to turn the government around. And one thing that nobody's mentioning is we need to turn the church around first.
Yeah, well, that's a true fact.
The church, the one thing that we could do in the church that would turn the church around is we need to stop women from going from one man to another having babies. In Deuteronomy 23rd chapter, the 2nd verse, it tells about this, and in Corinthians 7:11 it tells that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and historically, John, the task of caring for women who had children out of wedlock was not the government's responsibility. The government wasn't anywhere near that. In fact, the Salvation Army for a long time was the main provider of services to women who had children out of wedlock. They were faith-based. They were oriented toward Christ and Christianity. And so what they did when they would have these homes for unwed mothers, they would bring them in, they would coach them, they would disciple them, they would mentor them, so that when the time came for them to give birth, they would help them with adoption if that's what the mom chose. But that woman went back she was kind of mainstreamed then back into society with a Christian base, a basis of faith. Now, she was in a position where she was prepared to make a better and more mature decision the second time around. With the government involved, Now young women have an incentive to have more out-of-wedlock babies because they can get more money that way. And you can look at the charts and see how much more money you can get for every baby. All right, John, listen, appreciate that. Thank you. Let's go to Harold in Oklahoma City. Harold, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Hi, Brian. Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, you bet.
Just had a quick comment on Governor Perry running for president. I like him as a governor and as a Christian man and everything. I have, I have doubts that he could pull it off just simply because I think that the old guard won't support him, and that's my concern about that. If he got the clout behind him that he needed, I'd be all for it.
Now, is there anything? And I'm honestly interested in knowing this. Is there anything, Harold, about Governor Perry, about his positions that give you pause? You're talking about sort of structural things, whether he's going to get the support he needs. Is there anything about Governor Perry that is a question mark for you?
Off the top of my head, no.
Okay. And you're talking about like the ruling class Republicans, whether the Republican establishment will get behind Governor
right,
Perry?
Because I think that whoever gets I don't think that everybody was behind our last election. I don't think that they got behind.
Well, and the problem actually, Harold, I hate to interject here, but I'm running out of time. But I think, Harold, the last time was the ruling class Republicans did get behind Mitt Romney. He was the guy that they had anointed from the beginning. They decided he was going to be the guy. They did not want a genuine social conservative, and so they sabotaged the other candidates, and they got the ruling class pick of their choice, and it was a disaster for the Republican Party. All right, Harold, listen, I appreciate your call. That's Harold from Oklahoma City, the city of my birth. Focal Point AFR Talk back after the news. Don't go anywhere.
American Family Radio.